Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we have yet another lore compilation video, this time about the droid general himself and Jedi executioner General Grievous. So sit down and relax as we break down the history of General Grievous, some of his most terrifying feats, as well as what made him able to compete with Jedi, dominate, and butcher them so frequently. So without further ado, grab a snack and let's begin. The culmination of the Clone Wars and the final end of the war that had waged for years saw the collection of Jedi Knights assemble and do their part across the galaxy in order to end the conflict once and for all. With the Jedi spread across the galaxy, fighting their own respective battles as one final push towards victory, the end of the war seemed to be on the very horizon. A war that many of the Jedi previously had fought, bled, and died to win. With Count Dooku now dead, and the Separatist army in shambles, one of the final pieces to be put in place was the ultimate defeat of none other than General Grievous, one of the most notorious, horrific, and terrifying Jedi killers not only of the Clone Wars era, but in galactic history. With the death of Grievous, the Jedi could end the war. Grievous had been tracked to the planet of Utapau and was awaiting his own execution at the hands of Obi-Wan Kenobi, whether he realized this or not. While there were several reasons as to why Obi-Wan was the Jedi chosen for this particular mission, as he held a distinct set of advantages that made him the ideal Jedi to combat General Grievous and his own skill set, there were also some very serious concerns that prohibited many other highly reputable Jedi from being selected for such a dangerous task. Jedi that may potentially even be declared as more powerful than Obi-Wan Kenobi, at least at the time. Perhaps the next Jedi Master to be considered would have been Mace Windu, famed Jedi General and second only to Master Yoda within the ranks of the Jedi. As one of the most reputable combatants in the history of the Order, not to mention most well-rounded, as he was well attuned with the gifts of the light as well as the dark, Windu outclassed most, basically all swordsmen of the Jedi Order, from his tenure as a Jedi Knight, besting some of the most notorious fighters in the galactic history in his many years of mastery. Mace Windu was even a better combatant than Obi-Wan Kenobi, by Kenobi's own admittance, and was certainly a far better offensive duelist, which begs the question, why didn't Windu take on the mission to face General Grievous? And why did Windu himself say that he couldn't beat General Grievous in a one-on-one duel? Well, stick with us today, wary acolytes of the galaxy, as we analyze and dive straight into this idea and explain exactly why Mace Windu believed that it was too dangerous for him to ever engage General Grievous in lightsaber combat. Let us begin, acolytes of the galaxy. The answer to this question, boiled down, comes from the respective lightsaber forms of choice used by both Windu and Kenobi, as well as the disadvantages that Obi-Wan lacked with his mastery of Surisu. Disadvantages that Windu, although being the superior offensive fighter, did actually have in his lightsaber game. This minute detail was perhaps one of the key driving factors in making the selection, because while both Obi-Wan and Windu had advantages to offer, Windu had far more stark disadvantages holding him back against Grievous specifically. When Kenobi confronted Master Windu about the very same concerns, and why Windu ultimately wasn't the one to confront Grievous, Kenobi specifically cited their differences in styles, claiming that Windu would be a far more aggressive fighter in the engagement and would stand a better chance of penetrating Grievous's own defenses. And to this, Mace Windu responded with the following quote, "I created Vapad to answer my weakness. It channels my own darkness into a weapon for the light. Master Yoda's Ataru is also an answer to this weakness, the limitations of reach and mobility imposed by his stature and his age. But for you, Obi-Wan, what weaknesses does Surisu answer?" This quote tells us so much about why Obi-Wan was selected. This not only solidifies why Kenobi's choice of Surisu was the proper answer to Grievous's nigh unstoppable onslaught of strikes and offensive blows, but Windu is also on record as stating that he never wanted Grievous to see him utilize Vapad, his own form of Form 7 lightsaber combat that he created, let alone encounter him in a physical fight. If you are more interested in the assessment of how Kenobi's style was the ideal counter for Grievous's style, we encourage you to check out our video on why Obi-Wan was the best choice to beat Grievous. But for this one, let's specifically dive into exactly why Mace Windu was the wrong choice. Part of what made General Grievous such a formidable opponent was his uncanny ability to mimic the fighting styles of his opponents with remarkable accuracy, and with very little time needed to become proficient in a new form of lightsaber combat, not to mention mastering the intricacies of any wielder's own form, such as Vaapad and Mace Windu. Grievous also paired this with the ancient Sith philosophy of duel, which was the practice of overwhelming an opponent with a barrage of rapid strikes and blows meant to disorient and confuse. Both of these together made for an incredibly terrifying opponent who was able to use a Jedi's own fears against them, not to mention their own skills, petrifying them in place for 1 key second to deliver the killing blow. And the aggression and ferocity with which he conducted himself was unmatched by anyone of the Clone Wars era, only matched later by the might of Darth Vader. This made Windu's concerns surrounding his use of Vaapad even more severe, as the potential thought of Grievous mimicking his own form of combat likely would have elevated Grievous from a formidable opponent to a nearly unstoppable one. Vaapad was specifically designed to channel Windu's own inner darkness, allowing him to toe the line between the light and the dark, without ever succumbing completely to the dark side. This made Windu incredibly aggressive in combat, and made his lightsaber form one of the deadliest in the era of the Republic. In addition to this, Vaapad was perhaps one of the most aggressive lightsaber styles in use at the time, Sith forms included, if not the single most aggressive form. And combining the violence of Vaapad with Grievous's own style of utilizing duel would spell certain destruction for any other Jedi that Grievous could encounter. And this advantage would give General Grievous the edge to become perhaps the single most deadly Jedi killer in galactic history, as well as an overwhelming threat to the Jedi, even the most skilled lightsaber duelists of the era. If Grievous were to encounter Windu in a physical confrontation even once and get away, then he could use the methodology and techniques of Vaapad to augment his already incredible prowess with the blade. But this highlights the stakes of this fight in a few different ways. While Windu's loss would be a devastating blow to the Republic, Windu's death was not the only way to lose this fight. All Grievous would have to do would be to survive an encounter with Windu, and this drastically raised the bar for Windu's prospective performance if he had been the one chosen. He absolutely had to win. If Grievous were to survive his duel with Kenobi and escape though, then it would be tragic, but the Republic would be able to reassess and plan another attack to compensate for this initial loss. Not all would be completely lost. With the Separatists on the ropes, there would be little that Grievous could do in order to rebuild the fledgling Separatist movement, and it was only a matter of time before he, too, would eventually be bested. If he had escaped a duel with Mace, however, this would be a very different story, as he would now be armed with Vaapad in his arsenal, and would theoretically be capable of taking on any Jedi that should come across his path. This meant that a defensive technique was the single best offense to throw at Grievous, as his barrage of strikes could only hope to be countered by the Master of Defense and the preeminent Master of Sarisu, and all Kenobi had to do was hold his own long enough to exploit a momentary weakness in order to finally put an end to the leadership of the droid army. General Grievous was one of the most terrifying fighters that the Star Wars galaxy had ever seen. An individual who made it his sole purpose to hunt down and kill the Jedi that he was so jealous of. Jealous for the simple fact that when they had the opportunity to help his people, they did not. And in canon continuity, jealous because he believed that they were some of the only individuals in the entire galaxy that could defeat him in single combat. And when he attempted to pledge himself to them, they rejected his skills, as they deemed him unable to touch the gifts of the Force. Regardless of this though, General Grievous was an absolute powerhouse on the battlefield, one of the most ruthless commanders and battlefield tacticians. He was willing to cut whatever corners necessary, be it honor or duty to butcher any Jedi within his path, and he was quite successful at it. But while this offered many advantages to the Separatists, it offered one major drawback for Darth Sidious in particular. How did Palpatine plan on getting rid of such a ferocious demon when the Clone Wars ultimately concluded? And what was his plan to take out somebody as powerful and skilled as General Grievous? Well, today, students of the Force, we have that answer. First off, Dooku knew that Grievous was intended to be captured by the Republic at the conclusion of the Clone Wars. This was done for a very specific reason, as General Grievous was going to be painted out as the true monster of the Clone War, essentially washing the blame from any of Dooku's hands, and allowing for the reputation of Dooku to essentially be restored in the eyes of the public. Essentially, the plan was, as at least as Dooku believed it to be, was that he was going to be redeemed and absolved of any of the crimes committed over the course of the Clone War. All of the atrocities of the Separatists were going to be blamed squarely on the shoulders of one General Grievous. Perhaps Palpatine even intended for Dooku to be the one to take out Grievous after discovering the atrocities. Palpatine needed this to happen because, as Dooku believed, he was going to be put in a place of high power during the era of the New Empire, and therefore they needed someone to blame the entirety of the Clone Wars and the atrocity of the Separatists on, and that individual was Grievous, or at least Dooku thought it was. This was essentially in an effort to separate the Separatists from Dooku. However, as we know, this was never truly Darth Sidious's plan. What Palpatine's plan was that Dooku was always going to be killed by Anakin. Palpatine never wanted to rule alongside Dooku. He always wanted the superior option in the Chosen One, turned Dark Chosen One Darth Vader. And Dooku was only a tool and a means to an end, and an ultimate test for Anakin Skywalker, the true desired apprentice. This is why Palpatine's original death for General Grievous was planned during the Battle of Coruscant, the same time that Dooku was killed, and during the same battle. Only Palpatine believed that Grievous would be killed just after Dooku had been slain by Anakin, and the Invisible Hand would mark the final confrontation of Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Grievous. Palpatine did not want to have the Jedi hunt down Grievous, and did not believe that Obi-Wan Kenobi was personally capable of defeating him on his own. Therefore, he believed that Grievous needed to be killed on the Invisible Hand during the Battle of Coruscant, tying up two major Separatist loose ends at once and by the hands of one Anakin Skywalker. Palpatine believed that the combined might of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin would be more than a match for General Grievous. Even more than this though, Palpatine believed that Anakin was finally powerful enough to beat Grievous on his own. His logic being that if Anakin Skywalker was able to defeat Dooku in single combat, then he most certainly could defeat General Grievous. It's important to note that before this, Palpatine did not want Grievous and Anakin to encounter one another over the Clone War, as he believed that General Grievous had a legitimate chance of getting lucky against Anakin. But it was only after Anakin Skywalker fully proved himself superior to Dooku, who Palpatine knew was essentially one of, if not the greatest swordsman alive, that he believed that Anakin could take down Grievous, and that he was now fully ready. As to exactly why he needed it to be Anakin to be the one to take out General Grievous is also important to his ultimate grand plan. Palpatine believed that Anakin Skywalker would be able to transcend the reputation of any Jedi if he could be single-handedly the individual that ended the Clone War. Essentially, Anakin Skywalker being the only one to bring an end to the wrath of Dooku and General Grievous in a single day and on his own. Palpatine believed that this was the necessary separation that Anakin would need from the Jedi Order when he deemed them all as traitors to the Republic and ordered their entire execution. And Darth Sidious believed that it was this climactic final moment where Anakin could prove himself superior to any Jedi that he could use to sway the public. Again, it was initially Palpatine's plan to eventually hand over the entirety of the Empire to Anakin, but because of the fact that he was a Jedi, he needed a viable explanation and essentially an excuse as to why Anakin should be a part of the new Empire, when of course he was formally aligned with the Jedi, who were painted out as the true villains of the war. The plan of Darth Sidious on the Invisible Hand though is ultimately foiled by none other than Anakin himself. Once Obi-Wan Kenobi is unconscious, Palpatine's plan was to convince Anakin to go confront and hunt down General Grievous, believing that while Anakin was dueling General Grievous and hopefully killing him on the deck of the Invisible Hand, that Palpatine would have the necessary time to kill Obi-Wan Kenobi. At the time, besides Padme, Palpatine believed that Obi-Wan Kenobi was the only thing submitting Anakin Skywalker's allegiance to the Jedi and the light side, and that if he could take this crucial moment to kill Obi-Wan, then Anakin's turn would be fully cemented. This is why he is so pushy on the fact that Anakin needs to go confront General Grievous, and why they need to leave Obi-Wan Kenobi behind. But of course, we now know that Palpatine's original plan to take out General Grievous was thwarted by none other than Anakin himself, who refused to leave Obi-Wan Kenobi behind, and therefore Anakin was unable to draw upon his rage, and General Grievous was allowed to escape to the world of Utapau. So then, what was Darth Sidious' second plan to take care of General Grievous after his initial plans failed? The simple answer again is Darth Vader. However, when the Jedi Council decided to send Obi-Wan Kenobi to Utapau to confront and kill General Grievous, Darth Sidious knew that they had lost. He knew that Anakin Skywalker was close to the breaking point, and the second that they decided to send Obi-Wan away, Darth Sidious knew that he could fully corrupt the young boy without his Jedi mentor, and therefore, he knew that the fate of the Jedi was already sealed. And his simple plan was to turn Anakin Skywalker to the dark side of the Force fully. And if General Grievous happened to kill Obi-Wan Kenobi on Utapau, and the Jedi were unable to track him down afterwards, he simply would have sent a full-powered Lord Vader after General Grievous, likely as a surprise attack, and Grievous would have met his end. So to answer the question quite simply, the plan that Darth Sidious had to defeat and kill General Grievous at the end of the Clone Wars was Anakin. Whether or not that was Anakin Skywalker aboard the Invisible Hand, or a fully formed Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith. In the end though, he always believed that Darth Vader Anakin would grow too powerful for even the might of the Jedi Butcher in Grievous, and that eventually he would be able to take him down at his highest power. Of General Grievous is one ingrained with pain. As most individuals know Grievous, he is the most famous and possibly deadly Jedi killer in Star Wars history. It is estimated that he killed 100 Jedi with his own hands over the course of the Clone Wars conflict. Grievous was a cybernetic monstrosity in secret developed by the Sith Lords Count Dooku and Darth Sidious. He was developed not only to specifically combat Jedi in the heat of a lightsaber duel, but also to command the droid armies of the Confederacy. But there was a time before Grievous was a cyborg, and a time before he was called Grievous at all. Today, we will discuss the story of General Grievous before he ever became a cyborg and worked for the Sith. In a sense, we won't be discussing the story of Grievous at all. In this video, we will explore the story of Grievous's true name and original identity, Kwaimain Jai Shilal. Grievous was born during a time of great conflict on his homeworld of Kali. For generations, the Kalish warriors had been molded by war as they faced off against the scientifically superior Huck. The Huck being an insect-like species that desired to enslave the Kali. From an extremely young age, this conflict infuriated Grievous, again at the time known as Shilal. In hopes that one day his son would become a great warrior and leader for the Kali, Shilal's father trained him with the slug thrower rifle. Over time, Shilal became the most skilled sniper of all of the Kali, as many bowed before his might. Not to mention, he was only 8 years old at the time. By the time he achieved adulthood, many believed that he was a demigod and a savior sent from above to destroy the Huck and to save the Kali. In the midst of the Great Huck War, Shilal once encountered a dream where he experienced a warrior just as powerful as himself, only they chose to use a sword. In the dream, Shilal and this mysterious warrior killed the animal known as a muumuu, a dangerous creature that lived on their home world. After awaking from the dream, Shilal ventured out to kill one in reality in hopes that his dream would come true and he would meet this fierce warrior and equal. After finding a muumuu, the dream did in fact come true as this warrior appeared. To Shilal's utter shock, it was a female Kalish warrior. After together conquering and killing the muumuu, the two developed a fierce bond. Eventually, after continuing to fight the Huck War together, the two of them would be wed and would both be considered demigods amongst their people. For the remainder of his time as a Kalish warrior, Grievous would wear the skull of the muumuu that he killed with his wife. He would later even use a similar mask after becoming the cyborg General Grievous. Unfortunately, during one specifically terrible engagement with the Huck, Grievous was separated from his wife. Forced to watch in utter terror, Shilal witnessed his wife being torn apart by Huck. To add even further grief to the Kaleesh warrior, the Huck then threw her body into the ocean. Shilal's grief was made even worse by the fact that he could not retrieve the body of his loved one. Consumed with more grief than he had ever felt before, he ventured to a far-off mountain to pray to the gods. All Shilal desired was to say goodbye to his wife and loved one, and to see her one final time, but the gods did not answer. In a fit of rage, Shilal proclaimed that he would grieve forever as he cast off his original identity. In rage, he would take the title of Grievous, the Heartbroken. It was here that many believed that the true form of General Grievous was born, and not during his cybernetic reconstruction. Filled with a new sense of power, he managed to rally all of the Kaleesh warriors and drove the Huck from their homeworld. Not satisfied with this though, he pursued them across the stars, until unfortunately and eventually reaching the Republic. Unbeknownst to Grievous at the time, the Huck had reached out to the Jedi Order and explained that the Kaleesh warriors were savages that had attacked them unprovoked. Because of this, the Huck, now aided by the Jedi Order, again attacked the Kaleesh warriors. Not only did the Jedi Order attack the Kaleesh physically, but they also sent large fines and embargoes for the war. What resulted was total poverty on the planet of Kalee, as many of Grievous's people died of starvation. It was here that Grievous not only swore revenge against the Huck, but the Jedi as well. In order to pay off the heavy debts of his people, Grievous took a job in the Inner Rim working for the Separatists. Here, Grievous took on the identity of a debt collector himself, as he became known as a leg breaker. Although Grievous despised what he had become, thinking back to a time where he was worshipped as a demigod, he did whatever he could to preserve his people. It was here that he would catch the attention of the Sith, as they regarded him as one of the fiercest warriors they had ever seen. It was also here that Dooku, as well as Sidious, realized that they had found the subject for their new cybernetic program. Not only seeing that he was skilled in combat, but also hated the Jedi, Dooku believed that he was perfect. First though, Grievous had to be utterly and completely broken, both mentally and physically. In order to do so, Dooku sent out a false alarm to Grievous that the Huck had again invaded Kalee space. Rushing back to his homeworld, a bomb exploded on Grievous's ship that had secretly been planted there by Dooku's own spies. As Grievous fell from the atmosphere, his body nearly completely destroyed, Dooku watched with pleasure. Eventually, Dooku would retrieve what was left of Grievous and create the cybernetic monster that we all know and fear. But that was the story of General Grievous before he became a weapon for the Sith, and when he was known as Shilal, the demigod. But leave your thoughts on this in the comments down below, and did you know the backstory of Grievous and the origin as to why he hated the Jedi so fiercely? As always, thank you guys so much for watching, may the Force be with you, and have a great day. It is not an overextension to say that Dooku is the best lightsaber duelist or in the top 3 lightsaber duelists in all of Star Wars lore, with the only real competitors to his natural skill with the blade being Yoda, Mace Windu, and Darth Vader. Dooku was an obsessive lightsaber wielder. Having trained many Jedi in the art of lightsaber combat, he was considered the greatest duelist of the era, being a master of Form 2 Makashi. The dueling-centric form, he was essentially the greatest duelist one-on-one that the Jedi had ever seen for that time period, having competed with and even defeated Grandmaster Yoda in various sparring sessions. Darth Sidious even considered Dooku his superior in terms of lightsaber combat, though admittedly, Sidious cared little for skill with the blade. That is why I find Dooku's comments about one General Grievous to be most intriguing, as Dooku's thoughts on General Grievous's lightsaber form are very much a mixed bag, and today we'll discuss why he actually hated Grievous's lightsaber form, as well as why he believed that Grievous was one of the few individuals that could potentially get the better of Dooku in a lightsaber duel. Yes, on one rare occasion near the end of his life, Dooku actually admitted that if Grievous were to get lucky, Grievous could actually have defeated the Count, and today we'll explain why. In all actuality, Dooku found it an absolute pleasure to train General Grievous in lightsaber combat. General Grievous had a partially cybernetic mind that had all 7 forms of lightsaber combat downloaded into it, meaning that he could call upon any form and any variation instantaneously. But what pleased the Count was, despite this huge natural advantage over the Jedi, Dooku still found it highly necessary to train with Dooku and to train on his own. The aggression centers of Grievous's brain were dialed up to a 10 by the droids that reconstructed his body, and Dooku was pleased with how rageful and dangerous Grievous was. He too found a kindred spirit in some sense in General Grievous, as Grievous was just as obsessed with lightsaber combat as Dooku himself was. Despite not being force sensitive at all, this made Grievous an absolute pleasure to train. General Grievous did not ever coast when it came to his natural skill with the lightsaber, even despite being able to wield 4 lightsabers at once, and he was obsessed with improving his skill to compete with Jedi like Mace Windu and Yoda. Grievous's drive only continued though when Dooku said that he lacked a key component that many Jedi actually had, and why towards the beginning of their training, Count Dooku admitted that Yoda and Mace Windu would have been able to defeat and best Grievous, something that infuriated him coming from his master. Dooku explained that General Grievous lacked all sense of finesse and the greater grace of a lightsaber duel, believing that he relied far too heavily on power strikes and far too heavily on his own physical strength against a Jedi. Despite this massive critique though, this was also General Grievous's greatest advantage against Dooku and the Jedi in general. At various times during their sparring sessions, Grievous would push an advance against Dooku, something that would shock him a great deal and cause him to reflect on his age and the skill of the cybernetic monster, stating that he believed that if General Grievous got lucky and Dooku was not on his best day, that Grievous did have a legitimate chance of besting him. Not only was General Grievous physically imposing, but again he was highly unpredictable due to the cybernetics of his brain and the near endless results of the 7 variations of lightsaber combat. Grievous could be 100% unpredictable in his strikes, never coming at you with the same maneuver or tactic twice. This is something that Dooku found highly impressive and highly dangerous. It was true that General Grievous lacked finesse and the greater strengths that Dooku excelled in, including that of grace and patience. But where Grievous lacked in these departments, he excelled in nearly every other. In many ways, he was the perfect foil for Dooku. The Jedi had been trained and indoctrinated to be precise, to have finesse, and skill in set variations and styles of lightsaber combat. Therefore, when they were confronted with Grievous, who could change on the dime to any form of lightsaber combat, any technique, any style, they overwhelmed them nearly instantaneously, and the Jedi lost before the duel ever truly began. And this is the same thing that Dooku would experience during sparring sessions. However, Dooku was no fool, and Dooku full well realized that he had to hold certain information and techniques away from Grievous to ensure that if he ever had to, he would have variations of his own form and tricks up his sleeve that would allow him to overcome Grievous in a lightsaber duel, should Grievous and Dooku ever come to blows officially, with neither holding back. Dooku did have tricks up his sleeve that he did not teach Grievous. Not to mention, Dooku was very intelligent in the respect that he always held back in his sparring sessions with Grievous. This kept the general always wondering what Dooku was truly capable of, as Darth Tyrannus made a point never to go all out against General Grievous and constantly keep him wondering. Dooku had to take all of these precautions though, because of the natural power of the general. Admittedly, Dooku hated the way that General Grievous dueled, but he also somewhat admired it, being the exact opposite of his own chosen form. Something that scared Dooku though, deep within himself, is that he knew that General Grievous was designed and had one purpose in his life, that being to dominate and kill Jedi. And Dooku full well knew that he had been a Jedi for nearly 7 decades. He had trained as a Jedi, and he was the exact thing, or at least he used to be the exact thing, that Grievous wanted to kill. This is not to say that if General Grievous and Dooku dueled on even ground, that Dooku would not be the victor 7 or even 8 out of 10 times, as it's clear that Dooku is of course the superior swordsman to Grievous. However, according to Dooku himself, General Grievous was one of the few individuals that he believed could get lucky, and that he believed that should again Dooku not perform his best and Grievous perform his absolute best, that Grievous would have a chance. It's important to note that in the Revenge of the Sith novelization, there is tons of light shed on why Obi-Wan Kenobi was actually finally able to defeat General Grievous. In the novel, Obi-Wan states that he had to give himself over to the Force entirely in order to defeat the General. He states in the novel that it's no longer even him dueling Grievous. Instead, it's the Force itself. And it was only because Obi-Wan had to fall back on something that Grievous had no ability to touch whatsoever that General Grievous finally fell in a lightsaber duel. But anyway, my friends and students of the Force, what are your thoughts on this? And what are your thoughts on this major revelation? What are your thoughts on why Dooku believed that General Grievous could actually defeat him in a lightsaber duel? What are your thoughts on Dooku's criticisms and praise of Grievous's given form? And do you think that he is correct? Do you think that on his luckiest day, and Dooku's worst day, that Grievous would reign victorious over one of the greatest swordsmen that Star Wars has ever seen? As
although General Grievous never appears on screen in Attack of the Clones, he is actually present during the Geonosis arena battle. This was actually one of General Grievous's first assignments, as this was just following his cybernetic reconstruction by Count Dooku and Darth Sidious. And again, although we never see him directly during the arena battle, he's actually in the catacombs as the Jedi are attacking. For today's video, we'll detail exactly what General Grievous was doing and the major mission that Count Dooku gave him during this time. This was actually the first time that General Grievous was ever set free by Count Dooku, as again this was his very first mission, and it was his job to prove himself to the Sith Lord. The main thing that Grievous was tasked with though was to protect the Separatist Council, the same Separatist Council that we saw earlier in Attack of the Clones. General Grievous was a major secret weapon for the Sith Lord, therefore he did not want Grievous to reveal himself until later on in the Clone Wars, and revealed that Count Dooku had developed a secret Jedi killing weapon. Still though, Count Dooku predicted that various clone troopers as well as Jedi would eventually find themselves within the catacombs below the Geonosis arena, and because of this, General Grievous was tasked with protecting the Separatist Council. General Grievous was also tasked with leaving none alive and none to tell of his existence, meaning that if any clone trooper or Jedi were to spot him, General Grievous was to ensure that they never speak of it again. Dooku would eventually be proven correct, as clone troopers as well as a single Jedi did find their way into the catacombs. Grievous though, despite not having a lightsaber, made short work of them, as with his bare hands he was able to kill the Jedi, and again with his bare hands as well as with the help of the Magna Guards he was able to kill all of the clone troopers that entered the catacombs as well. It was following this that Dooku believed that Grievous had truly proven himself, and proven himself as a great warrior, showing that not only could he kill a Jedi, but he could kill a Jedi unarmed. It also proved to Dooku something far more significant than this. It proved to him what Dooku's main plan was, to have General Grievous's main ability and weapon be fear. Dooku would explain to General Grievous that as long as a Jedi was afraid, he would be able to beat them, but the second that he encountered a confident Jedi such as Mace Windu or later on Obi-Wan Kenobi, he was to flee. As similar to the Sith Lords, General Grievous's main ability was the art of deception, and as long as he had that deception, Dooku told him that he was unbeatable, but the second that he lost it, he was very much beatable. This is also the other reason why Count Dooku gave General Grievous 4 arms and 4 lightsabers and avenues of attack. General Grievous's main goal was to overwhelm and overpower immediately. Where General Grievous was most powerful was this first initial assault, and it was after General Grievous proved himself in the catacombs below the Geonosis arena that Dooku agreed to teach him the 7 forms of lightsaber combat, even agreeing to show the cybernetic monstrosity Form 7 lightsaber combat, or the Forbidden form. In fact, Dooku taught General Grievous in 2 of the rarest lightsaber forms in all of Star Wars, that being his own favorite form Makashi and Juyo. To Dooku's utter surprise, General Grievous even passed Asajj Ventress in blade work nearly immediately, mainly due to the cybernetic enhancements within his own brain, allowing him to memorize all of the sequences of lightsaber combat. Impressively, in Dooku's own opinion, General Grievous had become more powerful than Ventress, despite lacking the total ability to use the Force. But it was this one secret mission and General Grievous's success that allowed him to be trained in lightsaber combat, as well as claim his first true lightsaber, as he took the lightsaber of the Jedi that he killed within the catacombs. But that was General Grievous's secret mission during Attack of the Clones. And did you guys know about this mission before this video? Also, what are your thoughts on the way that Count Dooku taught General Grievous how to fight in a lightsaber duel, and the fact that his main purpose was to overwhelm his opponent, points, but if he came against a confident Jedi, he was ordered to retreat. Again guys, leave all of your thoughts on this in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, may the Force be with you, and have a great day.
Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to the channel. During the time of the Clone Wars, there were two main threats controlling the Separatist forces, Count Dooku and General Grievous. Dooku himself was more of a politician and presented himself to the public as a Separatist ambassador who only wanted freedom for the Confederate systems. Grievous, however, was the droid's supreme commander over the entire CIS military. He was an absolute monstrosity that the Jedi very frequently came into contact with over the course of the Long War. Almost every Jedi, except of course Anakin Skywalker. It is rather curious as to why the hero of the Clone Wars and Anakin had never interacted with the villain of it during the entirety of the conflict. The now infamous conversation between Anakin and Grievous on the Invisible Hand during the events of Revenge of the Sith lets us know that they had never actually met in person before this event.
And Anakin Skywalker, I was expecting someone with your reputation to be a little older.
General Grievous, you're shorter than I expected.
Grievous was astounded and maybe even a little insulted at how young Anakin was despite his reputation, and of course, Anakin couldn't help but respond with a little smirk of his own in saying that Grievous was much shorter than he expected. The Clone Wars lasted a whole 3 years, from the year 22 to 19 BBY. In that time, it would be Obi-Wan Kenobi that often found himself on the wrong side of the droid general's 4 lightsabers. But why is this? Despite the out-of-universe continuity reasons, what were the real story reasons that Grievous and Anakin never met on the battlefield? Well, today we actually have the answer to that question and how Sidious was directly involved. To understand why Anakin and Grievous never met on the battlefield, we of course must track it back to Darth Sidious Palpatine. Sidious, who was controlling both sides of the war the entire time, was strategically making moves for either side in order to perfectly craft his ultimate plan. This whole war was a big chess game against himself, and everyone on the board was just a piece to be moved around. Sidious used Dooku most notably very carefully, and instructed him to do very specific things. Dooku was his political scapegoat and scalpel, and direct underling when it came to dealing with the Separatists. Grievous, however, Sidious regarded as a mad feral dog. He was undisciplined, difficult to control, and above all else, an unreliable coward. Grievous was better used whenever he could simply be pointed at a target and taken off of his leash. This target happened to be a lot of the time, of course, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Kenobi always had the biggest roadblock to Palpatine because of the fact that he had a great connection with Anakin Skywalker, and therefore Palpatine wanted him gone. As his mentor, Anakin would look up to Kenobi as he represented his would-be anchor in the light side. This was of course until Palpatine began his manipulation of the Chosen One, subtly and slowly inspiring fear, doubt, and resentment towards the Jedi and his own master in Kenobi. Playing the long game, Palpatine knew that he had to be careful and not tip his hand too much to Anakin. The other thing was, he knew that he had to get Kenobi off of the board entirely, as he held a huge part of why Anakin remained cemented in the light side, and he didn't slip into Vader and his persona too often. Because of this, killing Obi-Wan Kenobi became a major goal of Darth Sidious over the course of the war. But he couldn't do it directly, he had to go about it by other means. Firstly, he had Dooku's assassin Ventress set on Kenobi for a long time, and when that didn't work because of Ventress's repeated failures and inability to nail down the Jedi Master, Sidious unleashed his greatest weapon on him in Grievous. Up till this point, Grievous had been proving himself to be a capable Jedi killer, but soon his cowardice would begin to show anytime he was unable to secure an absolute easy victory. As a result, he spent far more time running from Kenobi than actually fighting him, although the two crossed blades many times over the course of the war. As far as Anakin went, however, Palpatine didn't want his prized pupil to be damaged too soon. He had allowed Dooku to sever the boy's arm to teach him what it means to have something taken from him and to want revenge for it. But make no mistake, he was under direct orders from Palpatine not to kill Anakin under any circumstance. Dooku was refined, wise, and easier to control. Palpatine knew that he could trust Dooku to hold back if he requested it when fighting Anakin, even though at the time Dooku was the superior combatant. Both times Palpatine was present during Dooku and Anakin's duels, the first in the Clone Wars and the second on the Invisible Hand. Sidious had instructed Dooku to hold back on Anakin and goad him into the dark side so that Sidious could observe Anakin's strength and anger firsthand. Dooku was an enemy that Palpatine could control utterly. Grievous, however, wouldn't be able to take such instruction. He was far too much of a brute to understand the subtleties of manipulation and the grand scheme of the Sith. Grievous absolutely would not know how to hold back. Even a little could mean certain defeat against any Jedi. Palpatine didn't have a gauge for Anakin's skill until much closer towards the end of the Clone Wars, and didn't want Anakin being spoiled because of Grievous's barbarity. Of course, as he did see what Anakin was truly capable of, he ceased to have any doubt in his mind that he could overcome Grievous, and then he would voice his opinion. Though Anakin to the Jedi Council that he believed Anakin should be the one to take down Grievous on Utapau, and Palpatine laying the seed within the young Anakin's mind, with Palpatine at the time fully well knowing that Anakin would have bested Grievous. As we know though, the Council rejected this idea, and instead elected Obi-Wan Kenobi to take the mission since he had far more experience with the droid general than anybody else. This too worked in Palpatine's favor, as although Anakin wouldn't be able to kill Grievous, something far more important had taken place. Anakin now held even more resentment for the Jedi after not being allowed the rank of Master, and not being allowed to kill General Grievous and prove himself. Furthermore, it was threefold, as now Anakin was separated from his master since Obi-Wan was going to kill Grievous. But to answer the question blatantly, the reason why Anakin Skywalker was essentially not allowed to duel General Grievous over the course of the Clone Wars was because Palpatine directly deemed it so. He knew that he wanted Anakin as his prize, and he knew that he could trust Dooku not to kill Anakin, but he knew that if even General Grievous got lucky under certain circumstances, the entire plan to have the Chosen One become a Dark Lord of the Sith would have been spoiled. If Grievous got lucky whatsoever, he could have ruined everything. Not to mention, Palpatine believed that a General Grievous at the beginning of the Clone Wars would have absolutely been a match for Anakin, and Palpatine wanted to ensure that the power of Anakin Skywalker was enough that it could eclipse General Grievous before he ever let the two of them encounter one another. Make no mistake, Anakin as a Jedi Padawan likely would have lost to General Grievous, as General Grievous is perhaps the second most fearsome Jedi killer in all of galactic history, and it did take some time for Anakin to catch up to this monstrosity's power. But anyway, my friends, what are your thoughts on this little piece of Star Wars lore? What are your thoughts on why Palpatine refused to let General Grievous duel Anakin Skywalker for the majority of the Clone War? And what are your thoughts on his ability to control Dooku and not Grievous?
In Legends continuity, Grievous hated the Jedi more than anything for the simple fact that it was actually the Jedi that helped the rival species to Grievous, the Huck, pillage his planet. And it was in fact the Jedi that were manipulated by the Huck species into attacking the people of Grievous, his people known as the Kaleesh. It was this event that would kick off General Grievous's hatred for the Jedi, but one Jedi more than any other, a Jedi that Grievous would grow to hate even more than Obi-Wan Kenobi. What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. Before we get into it, I just want to say, according to my analytics, a lot of you guys that watch the channel aren't actually subscribed yet. So if you've been enjoying the content and want to see more, force choke that subscribe button. Now, into the video. In order to stop the Huck from invading his planet, Grievous united his people under his single banner, and became a warlord, and managed to force the Huck from Kali. But his bitterness did not end with that triumph, and he pushed them back further, storming their many colony worlds. His attacks and mass destruction of the entire Huck planets ensured Kaleesh victory, until the Huck turned to the Galactic Republic for help. Jedi Knights sent to stop the war sided with the Huck, and hefty fines and embargoes came upon the Kaleesh. As a result, Kali, Grievous, and his people ended up in poverty, and hundreds of thousands of Kaleesh starved and died. Some Jedi even visited the homeworld of Grievous directly, which is where he saw the Jedi in action for the first time in his life. He witnessed the power and skill of a Jedi in combat, but also how they could be manipulated and turned into an enemy so quickly without doing their due diligence, only seeing the people of Grievous as warmongers, even if it was the Huck that had started the war to begin with. There was one Jedi though that Grievous directed all of his hate towards, the main Jedi Master that attacked the people of Grievous. His name was Jamar, and his face was permanently scarred within Grievous's mind. Several months after the engagement, Grievous learned that the Huck had vandalized sacred Kaleesh burial grounds on the colony worlds, and that the Republic and Jedi had done nothing about this. This news reawakened his desire to act directly in defense of his people, so he abandoned his contract with the Bacon clan and returned to Kaleed to avenge the desecration. It was here that Grievous was shot down by Dooku, and would be cybernetically reconstructed into the monstrosity that we know as General Grievous. Grievous would then receive personal training on behalf of Dooku, as well as being gifted a lightsaber taken from a Jedi that was once a close friend to Dooku. In the back of Grievous's cybernetic mind, the Jedi that he wanted to confront and kill with his newfound abilities was the specific Jedi that invaded his homeworld, namely Jedi Master Jamar. It was several years into the Clone Wars that Grievous was able to hunt down and encounter Jamar for a second time near the end of the war. Over the war, Grievous had made several clear Jedi enemies and rivals, most famously Obi-Wan Kenobi. But it was this Jedi in Jedi Master Jamar that Grievous hated most of all, as he was the one that attacked his people and took everything from him originally. It was Jamar that Grievous hated more than any other being in existence for his crimes, and his inability to see past the deceit of the Huck, and only the wrongdoings of the Kaleesh and Grievous. It was finally on the battlefield where Grievous met Jamar yet again. As the Cyborg attacked him, the Jedi Master plainly stood no chance against Grievous and his endless rage. Grievous never said a word to the Jedi Master as he butchered him. He simply enacted his revenge, knowing that there was some justice and that his people had been avenged. It was after Jamar's death that Grievous took his lightsaber and added it to his now extensive collection, with Jamar's lightsaber being the most prized of them all.
But the cyborg monstrosity General Grievous hated the Jedi more than anything, and potentially more than anyone. His hatred only rivaled by the likes of the Sith and Sidious and later Vader. The reason for this though varies. In Legends continuity, the Jedi sided with the Huck, which was an alien species that was attacking General Grievous's species, the Kaleesh, as the two groups had been at war for centuries. This led to extreme poverty and famine, as again the Jedi Order chose the Huck over the Kaleesh, as the Huck claimed that the Kaleesh were attacking them needlessly and unprovoked. This led to Republic and Jedi intervention and massive blockades on the planet of Kaleed, which unfortunately resulted in the famine and death of many of Grievous's people, and those that survived now lived in extreme poverty. In canon though, the reasoning behind Grievous's origins is a little bit different, as he was obsessed with becoming the greatest warrior that the galaxy had ever seen, and absolutely lost his mind when he saw the Jedi for the first time and their insane ability to touch into an energy field that Grievous could not see, making them faster, stronger, and more elegant fighters. It was because of this that General Grievous located a Jedi and pledged himself to their order, wanting to become as powerful as possible, and for the Jedi to teach him the ways of the Force and how to tap into this. However, the Jedi Master present instantaneously sensed darkness within General Grievous, as well as an inability to use the Force, and turned him away as a result of this. It was at this moment that General Grievous pledged that he would become more powerful than any Jedi, and he would do so without using the Force. It is believed that by the end of the Clone Wars, following his cybernetic reconstruction at the hands of Dooku and Sidious, that he killed nearly 30 to 50 Jedi in Legends continuity, and it is rumored that he killed around 12 in Star Wars canon. making his point that he was superior to many Jedi Knights of the Order, even adopting and becoming obsessed with their weapon in the lightsaber. General Grievous hated the Jedi completely, but that doesn't mean that he didn't have some respect for a select few of them or their traditions. And in today's video, students of the Force and acolytes of the galaxy, we will take a look at one Jedi tradition that General Grievous respected, as well as the only Jedi Master that General Grievous ever admitted to respecting at all during the Clone War. So without further ado, let us begin. The cybernetics of General Grievous were specifically designed to counteract the effects of the Force and the Jedi. He could jump to a height similar as a Jedi could, and he was physically much stronger and much more imposing. Not to mention his partially cybernetic mind allowed him to analyze lightsaber forms nearly instantaneously, and he could seamlessly slip through and out of all of the lightsaber forms that the Jedi Order had constructed, becoming a master simply by downloading all of them within his very mind. Because of these great skills, General Grievous regretted the fact that he was unable to join the Clone Wars earlier, as Dooku would not allow the general to enter during the Battle of Geonosis, and wanted to keep this butcher as a secret weapon to be revealed later. Grievous realized though that as the war began and he began collecting more lightsabers, he recognized the great care that the Jedi took into constructing their unique blades. Each of the lightsaber blades were unique to a given Jedi in their skill set, and they each had their very own unique personality. Part of the reason why General Grievous collected these lightsabers was to prove that he was superior to the Jedi that he killed, but he also found genuine enjoyment and admiration of the great craftsmanship and care that the Jedi poured into their weapons. And this is the aspect of Jedi lore and tradition that General Grievous admired a great deal, as previously he had even been a swordsman of the Kaleesh. Grievous didn't just take the lightsabers as pure trophies, he genuinely admired them. Now though, let's talk about the single Jedi Master that General Grievous ever admitted to outright respecting. The name of this Jedi was Bink. Bink was a Jedi Master very similar to the likes of Qui-Gon Jinn, in that she believed more in the will of the Force rather than the Jedi dogma or the Jedi code, or even strictly adhering to the beliefs of the Jedi Council. Instead, Bink followed the will of the Force completely, having trained several prominent Jedi to knighthood and beyond, making Bink a clear form Jedi Master. However, Bink was not as outspoken as Qui-Gon Jinn, and actually on the surface had an excellent relationship with the Jedi Council, with Yoda especially holding Bink in very high regard within his eyes. Bink would survive all the way until the very end of the Clone Wars, when she would meet General Grievous for the first time as the Clone Wars reached its twilight. Just prior to the opening of Revenge of the Sith, Shaak Ti was called to the Chancellor's chambers in order to protect him from an oncoming invasion by the Separatists, led by one General Grievous. It was initially her mission to protect Palpatine at all costs. However, once she confronted General Grievous, she was dispatched by him after a lengthy duel. Although Shaak Ti gave up a noble fight against Grievous, he was ultimately victorious. However, Shaak Ti still survived. Immediately following this, Yoda sent Jedi Master Bink and 4 other Jedi to protect Palpatine and get him to a nearby bunker on Coruscant, as they believed that if the Separatists were to execute Palpatine, the war would come to a swift and terrifying climactic ending. The 5 Jedi managed to get the Palpatine before Grievous did, hiding him away in a bunker, as General Grievous eventually found it using insider knowledge, of course given to him by Palpatine. The 5 Jedi confronted Grievous in the opening of the bunker, and he easily dispatched 2 of them, cutting one's stomach open and decapitating the other, in a flurry of light that would have terrified any other Jedi, but not Master Bink. Bink touched into her ability to use the Force and held strong, using it to fortify her stance against Grievous and build a strong foundation against fear. However, she and the other 2 Jedi knew that they had to retreat, fleeing deeper and deeper within the bunker as they were pursued by the general. Eventually though, Bink resolved to run no further and decided to duel General Grievous with her 2 comrades. It was Bink that led the assault against General Grievous, as the 2 of them engaged in a brutal lightsaber duel. What was astounding though is Bink was able to tag General Grievous several times. However, something terrifying became very clear to the Jedi Master. General Grievous was intentionally leaving openings in his defenses that allowed Bink to get through them and tag him. It was clear that the droid general was attempting to test Jedi Master Bink and terrify her to her very core. but still she held strong. In an impressive show, the two other Jedi in the room flanked General Grievous as he activated all 4 of his lightsabers. In another flurry of light and limbs, the two other Jedi were struck down instantly, with only Jedi Master Bink and the droid General Butcher staring each other down in the hallway. Bink pressed her offensive drive once again, slashing at General Grievous, who he himself was quite stunned at the outcome of this engagement, as Bink was not afraid of him whatsoever as she pressed her assault. It was here where General Grievous had to actively try and strike down Bink, which of course he would. As Bink lunged for a killing blow at General Grievous, the cybernetics were too quick, and Grievous caught her first, impaling a blue lightsaber through her abdomen. However, something peculiar happened here, as before the Jedi Master hit the ground, Grievous caught her, slowly lowering her to the ground, as he then used his cybernetic leg to move her to a corner of the room, placing her securely out of the way from the other Jedi bodies, denoting Bink as something special. He also took no further measures to butcher or massacre the body whatsoever, as he slowly removed Bink's lightsaber from her possession, grabbing Palpatine, but before exiting the room, giving the Master Bink one final look. One thing is clear, General Grievous was by far the superior fighter, and after a lengthy engagement, Grievous did in fact stab Bink and kill the Jedi Master. However, by its conclusion, he now had a profound respect for this fallen Jedi, and instead of butchering the body as a sign of disrespect, he moved her away. This is a rare moment for General Grievous, as she showed her some semblance of respect for his enemy, the greatest enemy in the Jedi. Grievous respected the fact that even though he was so powerful and clearly a match for the other Jedi in the room, and the Jedi in Bink, this one Jedi was not afraid of him whatsoever, and stood up to him valiantly till the very end, not willing to give in to the way of fear whatsoever, and fortifying her stance and her foundation in the Force. Grievous had no other option but to completely and fully respect and admire this Jedi, seeing some of himself in her standing up to the gifts of the Force. One of Grievous's tactics is shock and awe, and the ability to overwhelm a Jedi extremely quickly. So when he came across a relatively small Jedi in stature and a relatively common Jedi in terms of their skill with the blade, and they still stood up to him ferociously and with no fear in their hearts whatsoever, as her comrades all around her fell to his blade, this was enough to earn the complete and total respect of one of the most ferocious beings in the Star Wars galaxy. But General Grievous's career as a Jedi executioner has led him into combat with some of the most gifted Jedi of the Order, letting him develop his affinity for lightsaber combat as the Clone Wars progressed. By the end of the Clone Wars, he was one of the best lightsaber duelists in the galaxy. He has faced down multiple masters of combat and taken several prized lightsabers over the years of the Clone War. Not being a member of the Jedi or Sith, or even being Force sensitive at all, this is highly impressive, and Grievous took their lightsabers to prove his superiority over them, and as a prized trophy. But of his vast collection, which lightsabers were his favorite, and which lightsabers did he seek to obtain at some point over the course of his career, and which ones did he want the most? Well, today, acolytes of the galaxy and students of the Force, let's explore some of Grievous's most prized lightsabers, and the sabers that he wanted to collect more than any other. In Legends continuity, one of Grievous's favorite lightsabers belonged to Shaak Ti, the Jedi Master and council member who oversaw the training of the clone forces on Kamino, and one of the most skilled duelists of the Jedi. The extended universe showcased Grievous taking her lightsaber despite her being able to escape the situation in altercation with Grievous. In the era of the Clone Wars and the Clone Wars Jedi, I believe Shaak Ti is one that is very underrated, as she basically ranked within the top 5 best duelists at the time. In modern Star Wars canon, Shaak Ti was killed by Darth Vader during the Nightfall siege at the Jedi Temple, meaning that this explanation likely exists only in Legends, and Grievous only got Shaak Ti's lightsaber in that continuity. However, she was able to survive the encounter with Grievous, meaning that some variation of this event might have actually happened in canon as well, although it is unlikely. Although Grievous did not kill Shaak Ti in Legends, she was one of the most prominent Jedi generals that he had been able to best in combat, and her lightsaber was among the most prized in his collection simply because he was able to overpower her. Similarly to this, he also took the lightsaber of Adi Gallia in the extended Legends as well, though in canon we know that Adi Gallia met her end in a much different way. In Legends though, Adi Gallia was one of the prominent Jedi Masters killed by Grievous near the end of the Clone Wars. In canon however, she was killed by Savage Opress. But with the lightsabers of Adi Gallia and Shaak Ti being the most prominent lightsabers added to Grievous's collection in Legends continuity, what about Star Wars canon? As far as Grievous's favorite lightsabers in the current canon, it hasn't yet been confirmed, but we have a reasonable guess as to whose saber this might have been, and the most prominent Jedi lightsaber that he collected. It's estimated that Grievous killed upwards of a dozen Jedi in canon, including a Jedi Master by the name of Dokman Barrick, an esteemed Jedi Knight who took the rank of General when the Clone Wars began. Barrick was a gifted Jedi Master who quickly rose through the ranks, and was perhaps one of the highest ranking Jedi that Grievous had killed within the early months of the war. While it hasn't been outright confirmed, it stands to reason that this is likely one of Grievous's most prized lightsabers in canon, simply due to how prominent Barrick was within the Jedi Order and the ranks of the Clone Wars, and how highly ranked in the Republic this Jedi was. As for the sabers Grievous wanted to obtain before the end of the war, there were 4 primary blades that he wanted to collect above all others before the war came to an end. The first was the lightsaber of none other than Obi-Wan Kenobi, who had become something of a rival for Grievous throughout the course of the war. As a master of Sarisu, Kenobi was one of Grievous's toughest opponents, and the two had engaged in combat several times, with Kenobi surviving every single encounter, much to Grievous's annoyance. This frustrated Grievous immensely, as he wanted nothing more than to finally overpower and kill Kenobi after years of seeing Kenobi repeatedly slip away. On many occasions, Obi-Wan not only defeated Grievous, but utterly humiliated him on the battlefield with the combination of his combat prowess as well as his sarcastic wit. While Dooku and Anakin had their own rivalry, Kenobi and Grievous were constantly clashing with one another, and this made Kenobi's lightsaber one of Grievous's most sought-after possessions. Next was the lightsaber of Anakin Skywalker, simply due to his reputation as the Chosen One, an icon of the Jedi. Anakin's reputation was legendary throughout the Clone Wars, and he was one of the most gifted Jedi generals to take the front lines of the war, with Anakin slicing through entire armadas of battle droids and being nearly undefeatable in the field. Based on reputation alone, Grievous wanted to take Anakin's saber for himself simply because Anakin was so famous and highly regarded. Though they never formally met until the Chancellor was captured over Coruscant, Grievous came to know exactly how powerful Anakin had become and wanted to challenge the poster boy of the Jedi. If he was able to overpower the Jedi's most prized warriors, then he would simply not only gain immense notoriety and respect, but within his own mind, he would finally quell that he was superior to any Jedi. Not to mention, with the death of Anakin, it may have ended the war. This ran the risk of destroying their will to fight, and Grievous wanted to prove himself as the superior combatant, capable of fighting off the most powerful of Jedi. And this is why, perhaps he even held Anakin Skywalker's saber above more acclaim than that of Obi-Wan's. As an interesting bonus trivia fact, in Revenge of the Sith, the 2 lightsabers Grievous used during the Battle of Utapau are modeled after the respective hilts of Anakin and Obi-Wan. Aside from this, there were 2 particular sabers that he believed were nearly unobtainable, and had actively been warned that trying to collect them was a suicide endeavor by Dooku. The first of which is the lightsaber of Mace Windu, who served as a constant rival to Dooku during their time as Jedi, and they constantly struggled to one-up one another as they were burgeoning Jedi Knights. Count Dooku was widely regarded as one of the best swordsmen that the Jedi had ever produced, and his mastery of Makashi made him an incredibly difficult combatant to engage in battle. And the fact that Windu was able to rival and sometimes match this incredible latent talent caused Dooku to tell Grievous to be weary of this Jedi. And the last Jedi lightsaber that Grievous wished to obtain was, of course, Grandmaster Yoda. Collecting the lightsaber of the Jedi Order's Grandmaster would be the single greatest show of strength that Grievous could ever achieve, and Yoda would have been the most significant death of the Clone Wars. If Grievous were able to kill Yoda, then it would have sent ripples across the entire Republic and perhaps the galaxy, and using Yoda's lightsaber as a weapon in combat would have struck fear through every experienced Jedi Knight. Any Jedi that recognized the blade would automatically be filled with an innate sense of dread, as they feared any encounter with the monster who had slaughtered one of the oldest, wisest, and most powerful Jedi ever. But anyway, my friends, what do you think of Grievous's ambitions to collect these sabers, and in Legends continuity, his 2 favorite lightsabers, those belonging to Jedi Master Shaak Ti and Adigalia respectively, as well as his favorite lightsaber in Star Wars canon? Grievous became the cybernetic monster used by the Sith Lords as the main antagonist and Jedi killer of the Clone Wars. In secret, the Kaleesh warrior had amassed a small collection of ancient Sith lightsabers before he had ever desired to collect the weapon of a Jedi. In fact, Grievous had these lightsabers far before he ever met Dooku. However, how Grievous actually attained these lightsabers is unknown, although I would speculate they were passed down to him by other warriors, as they viewed Grievous as a demigod among his people for his combative skill and strength in combat. Because of this, I speculate that these warriors passed down the Sith lightsabers to Grievous. For years, Grievous held great pride in this lightsaber collection, although he never used them in combat. To Grievous, the Sith lightsabers represented great dark conquerors that existed far before he did. Because of this, Grievous kept them as a signal of power. Following his cybernetic reconstruction by Count Dooku on his very first mission, Grievous's collection of red Sith lightsabers were stolen from him by two Dark Jedi who had recently abandoned the Jedi Order in search of riches and fame because of their power and connection to the Force. These two Dark Jedi had left the Jedi Order because they did not believe in their ideals and wanted money and power. Along the way, however, these two Dark Jedi, who were twin sisters, deduced that they needed to find lightsabers. But not just any lightsabers, they needed lightsabers that meant far more. They needed the lightsabers that had belonged to the Sith. During Grievous's travels, he was located by one of the two Dark Jedi, as the sister convinced Grievous to show her his lightsaber collection and pretended to be terrified of the raw power of General Grievous. Grievous had spoken to the Dark Jedi in depth about lightsabers and how he believed he was far more powerful than any Jedi. Grievous himself explained that he had been specifically designed to hunt and kill Jedi, and that he was to use the red lightsabers to do so. Grievous informed the Dark Jedi that for centuries these blood-red Sith blades had been cutting down Jedi, and now it was his turn. Grievous, however, was unaware that there was a second identical twin to the Dark Jedi he was speaking to, and because of this treachery, they managed to steal the Sith lightsaber collection of Grievous. After the two fled the world, Grievous discovered that his lightsabers were missing, and instantly tracked the sisters down to a harsh world with various acid pools. Grievous was determined to get his lightsaber collection back at any cost. As Grievous exited the ship, he ignited the only lightsaber still in his possession, a Jedi lightsaber gifted to him by Count Dooku, which had once belonged to the Jedi Master Sidious. Igniting the blue blade within his palm, Grievous was ready. This would mark the very first lightsaber duel Grievous was involved in, excluding his training under Count Dooku. Grievous then mercilessly attacked the two Dark Jedi, who used the Sith lightsabers to defend themselves. Easily, Grievous outclassed one of the sisters, but accidentally struck her blade too hard, and one of Grievous's Sith weapons fell into a nearby acid pool. Enraged by seeing his prize destroyed, Grievous continued his assault, as the sisters each grabbed multiple lightsabers in order to fend off the seemingly unwavering attacks by Grievous. After realizing that Grievous was simply too powerful, and that he would ultimately kill the two Dark Jedi, one of the sisters threw all of the Sith lightsabers into an acid pool, as to momentarily shock and disorient Grievous. After doing so, the two Dark Jedi ran for their ship as quickly as they could, and again fled the planet. Left in utter rage, Grievous looked down at the Jedi weapon still left within his palm, and vowed to begin a new lightsaber collection. This time though, collecting the weapon of the Jedi Order, but instead of purchasing or receiving them as a gift, Grievous vowed to kill every Jedi first, then claim their lightsaber for his prize. The blades of the Dark Lords of the Sith no longer meant anything to Grievous, as they were gone, but the time of the Jedi was now. But by his blade, it would soon come to an end.